Usually when people think about building better habits, they optimize for the finish line, right? It's like, how much weight do I need to lose? How much money do I need to make? When can I finish this book? It's all focused on the result. But I think instead, if you optimize for the starting line, make it as easy as possible to start, scale it down, organize your environment so that all that stuff is set up. This is another strategy for making it easy, which is that you can prime your environment to make the future action easier, right? Like if you chop up a bunch of vegetables and fruit on Sunday, it's now easier to have a healthy snack during the week. If you set your workout clothes out the night before, it's now easier to get into the workout the next day. But doing all that stuff to make it easy to show up, that is probably the more important piece early on. There's also there are all these logistical details for building a habit that nobody thinks about in the beginning.
Like what?
Well, take the example of my reader who went to the gym. It's like, okay, what gym are you going to go to? How are you going to get there? Right. Are you going by yourself or are you going to go with a friend? Do you need to...
What time are you going to go?
Yeah, what time are you going to have your own water bottle or is there a water fountain at the gym? Mm-hmm. And that stuff sounds like silly and small, but when someone's starting,
space, right? Yeah.
The fact that the gym doesn't have a water fountain and I always forget to bring my own, that's enough friction for someone to quit. So by focusing on just the first 2 minutes, you figure all that stuff out. And then once you've got that piece mastered, now you can worry about how long the workout is and what program to do and all that stuff. Habits are the foundation for mastery. So if you take a sport like basketball, you need to be able to dribble with both hands without thinking before you can worry about what strategy you're running on offense or what kind of strategic play you're going to run or what your defensive scheme is or all this other stuff, right? Like you need to automate the fundamentals of the craft before you can worry about the next level of performance. Same thing is true for chess. You need to know how the chess pieces move automatically without thinking about it before you can get into, all right, what is my opponent going to do? And I'm going to do this and they're going to do that. And so I think this is true not just at the peak levels of performance, that you integrate these habits and use habits as the foundation for the next level of performance, but also true when you're getting started. Just build one small thing. Carve out a 1% change, a 1% improvement, and use that as a stepping stone to the next level.
And what about self-control? Because what if we have this desire for something? What's the other word for self-control I'm thinking
willpower,
of? Willpower,
perseverance.
Yeah. What about willpower? How much willpower do we have?
So you hear this a lot. I mean, it's very common, especially in self-help, motivation, self-improvement. Yep. You need to be motivated. You have to have willpower. Grit and perseverance are huge and important. And it's not that those qualities are not important. It's just that the way to develop them is different than what most people think. So most people think, I need willpower, so I should just try harder. There's an interesting body of research, I mentioned it in the book, I think it's in chapter 7, on self-control and willpower, which is that the people who appear to have the greatest self-control actually are just tempted the least. So they face temptations less frequently and therefore have the reserves and the resources to resist it when it occasionally comes up. And I think that this is actually like the lever to pull or the pressure point to push on, is that the way to get better willpower is to design an environment that tempts you less, not to say, let me just try harder.
Right, yeah. Set yourself up to win. And you have a chapter that talks about the power of accountability partners. I talk about accountability and coaches all the time. I hire coaches for everything because I use sports as my life, an analogy for my life. And I know that I couldn't have gotten to where I wanted to be as an athlete without great coaches. And accountability.
Yep.
So how important is accountability towards habits as well?
Yeah, it's huge. So I recently hired a powerlifting coach. He's great. He's worked with like 12 world champions. And having him has, he's not based in Columbus actually, but Columbus is great for strength culture. Yeah. It's, obviously there's the Arnold, but then Westside Barbell and a bunch of other stuff. It was awesome. But your point about coaches is a crucial one, which is that having a coach forces you to be aware of things that you would otherwise overlook, right? Like this is what I call the downside of building good habits, which is you build habits and in the beginning you develop fluency and skill and ability and things become easier. But after a little while, once a habit has been established, the downside of having a habit is that you can do it good enough on autopilot, which means that you start to overlook your mistakes and not think about how to get better. And so what you need is a coach to keep you on that razor's edge so that you keep building habits, but it also forces you to stay aware of what the next level of performance is. And that's kind of the challenge of continuous improvement. It's like a cycle. It starts with awareness. If you're not aware of what your habits are or what your behavior is, you don't have a chance to change it. Then from that awareness, you go to deliberate practice where you have to effortfully try and work to get better. And eventually, the thing that you were deliberately practicing becomes a habit and becomes automatic. But once it becomes automatic, that's not the end. You have to return to awareness and see where you're at now,
how to
and
get
start
to
the
next
cycle
level,
again.
This is powerful stuff. I'm going to ask you a couple final questions.
Yeah, sure.
This one's called the 3 Truths. If you could only share 3 lessons with humanity in the world, and they didn't have access to your writing or your blog or your books, but you only had 3 lessons you could share, what would those 3 lessons or 3 truths be?
Yeah, that's really tough. So the first one I would say is about reading. I mentioned earlier that reading is sort of like this meta habit that helps you solve all your other problems. So I guess my lesson for reading would be start more books. Start more books, quit most of them, read the great ones twice. So if you start more books, you'll be exposed to more ideas. If you quit most of them, if you quit the ones that aren't relevant to you or aren't that good or just aren't a high quality bar, then you'll have the chance to start even more. And when you find the great ones, read them twice because the advice is incredible and it's potentially life-changing.
Okay.
All right, so the first one I would say is reading. The second one is something to do with physical movement and strength training. Every human has a body and every human has like a physical presence. So learn to use your body in some way to be more alive and to experience what that's like to be human. If you just spend all day in your head or all day staring at a screen, you only kind of get half of what it means to be alive. So I would say physical strength is another one. And then the third one has to be something along the lines of community, connection, serving others. I don't know what exactly that would be. Personally, I have felt most engaged when I've been working on a shared mission with a group of people face to face, which is interesting coming from someone who, my business is built online, right? I spend most of my time sending emails to, 500,000 people or whatever. But I think actually I find more satisfaction and more purpose in connecting with people face to face. So maybe that would be it. Talk to someone face to face every day.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, I got to acknowledge you, man, for all the work that you're doing to make an impact on people. I think your writing has really helped transform lives, whether you know how impactful it is or not, but 500,000 people is a lot of people. And I know people are doing the action steps that you provide for them. So you constantly doing the work, constantly doing the research, and showing up for people is making a big impact. So I acknowledge you for that.
The thing that has advanced humanity over the broad span of time is the collective knowledge that we've all accumulated, what we've added together. It's like we've had it started out as a very small snowball and just keeps rolling on this endless hill as humanity continues, and the cumulative knowledge gets bigger and bigger. There have been, I think the numbers are there have been 107 billion people who've lived throughout history.
Really?
And there are 7 billion alive right now. So the dead outnumber the living 15 to 1. When you were born, you inherit all the lessons from those 107 billion people, right? Like I have a little niece, she's 2 years old. She's gonna be taught things in school that I was not taught. There's some stuff that I was taught, we found out was wrong and now we got rid of it, and some stuff we learned that was new and right and now we're adding it. And that's true all the way down the line, right? Like the next generation always gets to advance based on this like ever-growing bundle of knowledge that we come up with. And so if you, at some point throughout your life, can add just a little bit to that bundle, the rest of humanity is better for it.